or you catch a killer or whatever, that's an unusual, and David was, in fact, very unusual. I had no idea his name was Rosario until I read the obituary that a friend of mine sent. Maybe you know Arnold Wachtel. He and his father used to have a funny shop in Times Square. He was famous for having fake dog shit, you know. Anyway, in fact, I carried it with me as a cop when I put it in my pocket, and I said, I wanted people to give a movement. I was also the guy with the breast brush, and I pulled over a couple of guys after Getz had his incident. We were assigned to 14th Street. I said, "Hey, buddy, would you say it's cold tonight?" And they say, "Yeah." I'd say it's a little nippy. Anyway, I had issues with the police department. I was an unusual occurrence. It wasn't easy dealing with my kind of mentality, but I managed to survive. I was sent to the shrink one time because I jumped out of a paddy wagon, clown costume. Out of a van. Declaring March 4th against Crime Day on March 4th. The guy said, your behavior was bizarre, blah, blah, blah. What happened was, but I passed with flying colors. That was when Molinari was the inspector over there.
It was the 80s.
But getting back to David.
Yes, David. What I think, there's a friend of mine also known David, and we're having the 50th anniversary of Lincoln High School, the class of '67, next week. But I was thinking about going to the museum and getting a statue of David, with everything hanging out and everything else. So you may want to consider an additional award and say, instead of an Oscar, you want a David. Anyway, I am very impressed with so many people over here, and it's good to see all this love. It's contagious and catching. And I want to just tell you that Aristides had his birthday 3/22, which is also my birthday. And everybody, there's a light snack for everybody.
Between 1964 and 68, I met an unbelievable array of characters and personalities, whether in the West Village or in the East Village. All unbelievable. But David Peel was defiantly one of a kind. May he rest in peace.
Mr. Melody, TM, like trademark. Some know me as Aristides, some know me as Mr. Sexy. Villager Express has a big article here about David. I'm leaving it here. God bless you, brother.
Just happy birthday.
The entire article? It's a whole page.
Aristide, stay by that light. By that light.
Yeah, by this light.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Now I got
God bless David Peel. I really, here we are, it's Easter and it's Passover. Very moving. I know this man 50 years from, from the Summer of Love in Central Park with the Be-Ins in Sheep Meadow, where all the hippies would congregate and party for hours and hours and hours. And then maybe the cops would come on, mounted police would come and clear us out, or we'd fool around with them for a while. But occasionally there was a bonfire, there was a yip in, a zip in, there's a lot going on over there. And David was always, he'd cruise through there and he'd get up on Hippie Rock, which was this big boulder at the south end of Sheep Meadow. If you've been to Sheep Meadow, some university made a cast, a life-size cast of Hippie Rock, somewhere in Minnesota. There's another Hippie Rock. It's a true story. So David used to be up there, and we used to sing, and we'd all sing, and all of these songs, great songs, very humorous. The thing about David and protest and fighting the establishment is that he brought a really great sense of humor to it, and also a sense of reasoning. You know, he wasn't, I'm going to say this, some people might not like this, he was not a zombie libtard, okay? David really was a thinking person, and if I told you who he voted for and who he supported, you're going to get mad at me. Because I know I'm in New York State right now, and I don't know about that state of mind.
The orange one? He supported the orange?
However,
Howard Stern.
yeah, he voted for Howard Stern. No, he did not. He would have wasted votes. But really, David, you know, oh God, 50 years. What can you say about somebody you know 50 years? You could say a lot.
I gotta say something.
Well, you will. You definitely will.
I mean, in response to...
Oh, well, please, go ahead.
David's voting,
This is Bill Connor here.
He,
And Mr. X over
he
there.
did vote for Trump. Well, he had told me in recent times that he was ready to hit the streets and start protesting against him. Because he didn't like some of the things that he was doing. He voted for Trump because he wasn't for Hillary, because we decided that she was with the New World Order. So we thought Trump isn't.
He wanted to make America
But
great
David's
again.
last thoughts on Trump was he was ready to protest.
We wanted to make America smoke again, too. Thank you, Bill. One thing I wanted to say, though, MIT has an award.
Great, and it's going to be great again. Whether
MIT has an award that they proposed for the person who affects social change at the greatest personal risk. It's a $250,000 award from MIT. The person who affects social change in a meaningful way at a great personal risk. And I nominate David Peel.
Yeah.
Very good.
Regardless of who anybody voted for. There is a pot parade.
Yeah.
May 6th. It starts at 31st Street and Broadway and goes down to Union Square. It's not the same as Washington Square, but it continues a tradition that David Peel was associated with for many years. It would be good if there was some kind of banner or something in that parade this year to express, have a marijuana or David Peel or something like that to honor and continue
In the parade.
the parade that's going to have to go on year after year because we are not done yet. I said we won because Jeff Sessions and Marino and Chris Christie can't just come in and do what Nancy Reagan did all over again. But it's necessary to fucking be out there. It's necessary to be out there. And I think that David Peel, had he been alive this year, would have been at the pot parade.
Good.
My name is Bill Connor, and I'm a good friend of David's. I first saw him at May Day's J Day in Washington Square Park. I had gone in for, the May Day protest with the hippies, and there was David jumping up on the bench, singing the marijuana songs, and I thought, this guy's the most fun you could have at a protest. So I got to hang out by him, and I'll have fun for the protest, instead of being so seriously protesting. And I got some of the underground newspapers, and next protest is going to be here. And I went back and I was like, I got to find that guy again. And I seek him out every protest I went to. And I'd seek him out every time I went to a protest, and I was going to a lot of them. And he was always there, and he was always fun. And a number of those. As time went on, the protests became less. I went to a few, he wasn't there. This isn't so fun for me anymore. And then life moves on. I wasn't going for a while to the protests. And then Occupy Wall Street came. And I went there in the early part of that. The night after the people were arrested at the bridge, I said, I gotta see in person. Some funny stories, you know, of all the other protests. But this one, I see David, I see Aaron, I see it's old protesters, old home week, you know, at the front of the park. And, oh, you're still alive, yeah. You know. David starts singing, we want a job, give us a job, we want to work, give us. He's got 30, 40 people all chanting this for about 15 minutes out on the street. Sightseeing buses are taking pictures and stuff. And he leans over towards the end while they're chanting and he goes, what am I saying? I don't want a job. I never wanted a job. He was the most fun you could have at a protest. I didn't know for years that he had albums, and I just knew him as a protester, and I loved him for that. And he was surprised when I told him. Funny protest stories, you know, the Tompkins Square. I see they had the riots on TV. The next day I run in. I get there just as it's getting chaos again, but I'm looking, where's Keel? I see him, I go running over to him. I go, what do we do? He goes, run! Words of wisdom, you know? So much fun. So he took me into his band about 6 years ago. It was a lot of fun. We talked all the time on the phone, 5 days a week. And I'm really gonna miss him. Hit me the other day. Haven't heard from him in a few days, and then it was like, he's not calling. So I'm really sad. But his spirit is here with those that loved him. And we all did. And he's here. And there's a million other stories, but I'll give other people chances. And some of the stories other people told me. They were at some protest. David goes, come on, I'm taking everybody to eat. What is he, rich? He brought him to the Hare Krishnas. God bless David. We'll all miss him forever.
A lot of old friends here. Well, I know David before I knew David.
Excuse me, could you please stand by the light?
Introduce yourself, Paul.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who wrote this article. You want to read it? I met David, like I say in the article, I have to say, somebody had given me, I don't know if folks remember, before the internet, there was a time before the internet where you had to find out things. How did you find out things? You had to find out things in encyclopedias and word of mouth, things like that. And a friend of mine gave me a copy of something called Lillian Roxon's Rock Encyclopedia. Anybody get that? It was a big thick book, right? And it had every single rock band and a really cool little blurb about them, telling you what kind of music and what it was about. And I'm going through it, and you know, the Doors, the Dead, the Zappa, all this stuff, interesting. Wow, I was like 13 or something. And what caught my eye the most was this guy, David Peel, on the Lower East Side. First of all, it was close to home, and I was from New York. But second of all, it was the Have a Marijuana was the name of the album. And the second album, or the first one, I think one before that was the American Revolution, and it had this crazy guy, in a Revolutionary War uniform, running down, assaulting a street of tenement buildings in Lower Manhattan. And I'm like, wow, what's this about? And I have to get this record. So I went down, in those days, there was no internet, no iTunes, right? I went down to like Gimbel's department store. I went to the discount bin in this huge room, and sure as hell I found one of his albums for like $5, right? And I went, bought it and brought it home, and I listened to it and I loved it and I laughed about it. And the one, of course, of all the songs, the one that struck me the most, because it was so, today it's so common, right? People say fuck. Doesn't mean anything. It's like a meaningless word, really. But in those days, it had power. It was against the law. It was obscene, right? It was something that if you said, you could get arrested for saying it in those days. And here was a song that said what? Up against the wall, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Right? And I play, and in those days, again, I'm dating myself, but it's interesting to put it in that context. Usually, the record player was in the living room. Right? A big wooden thing that had the TV in it and everything, right? It was all in one thing, right? So when you played records, it was like for the whole family. You didn't just go and listen on your little thing alone. Everybody would hear it. And so I put that record on, and I got it tuned on full blast with big speakers and a big wooden thing. And it comes to this song, and it's like, up against the wall, motherfucker, and my uncle, and my mother, and like everybody in the house walks in, and what the hell is going on? And I got in a lot of trouble, man. I couldn't believe it. I was really in a lot of trouble. And so many years goes by. I go to the University of Wisconsin, where we used to sell David Peel's albums, which we got in the back of Rolling Stone magazine, and they would ship it to us in crates, and we would sell it on State Street in Madison. And David was always annoying because he was seen as a hippie, and what did he call himself? The king of punk. I knew back then. I mean, John isn't here, but a lot of punks were like, he's a hippie, he can't say he's the king of punk. He always used to say, I started punk before anybody else, right? He would say, and then you always say I'm a hippie, but I started punk, right? And Death was, I remember David Peel and Death, that was right that time period. So I come back to New York, and I'm at 9 Bleecker Street, the hippie headquarters. Woo! And in the dank first floor were these, and dank in more ways than one. And across the street was Studio 10, which was a club. It was even cooler than CB's, I think. If it had survived, it would have had a better rep than CB's. And in comes his entourage, and one of the people is David Peel, and I think,
you know, he was such an egomaniac. How he would love this room full of people talking about him. I mean, we lost him way too young, but I'm not a native New Yorker. I was born and raised in a rural part of New England. I grew up in New Hampshire, and I just never seemed to fit in. I was the kid that just didn't merge with those rural country kids that were behind the times and, you know, all the stuff they were into. And I was really an outsider. I remember when I was in high school feeling detached. This kid from New York comes to our high school up in Manchester, New Hampshire, Manchester West High School, and he kind of takes a liking to me. He's from New York City. His name was John Yox. He's no relation to Sean Yox, though, David's friend. No relation whatsoever. But he said, you know, I got some music I think you'd really dig, you know, some records that were with me. He gave me 2 albums as a gift. He gave me the New York Dolls' first album, and he gave me the Pub Smokes Dope. and they changed my life. Maybe they destroyed me, I don't know. But I listened to them a lot. I got into that whole scene. I was trying to get these records whenever I could. And I made it a point when I was a kid up in New Hampshire. One day I will make it to New York City and I will meet these guys on these albums. I got to meet all the Dolls. I got to know Johnny Thunders pretty well. You all know what he was like. But David Peel was something else and quite remarkable. The day, I remember exactly, precisely the day I met David Peel, finally. It was December 30th of 1989, 27 years ago. I was at the funeral of Billy Martin, which was at St. Patrick's Cathedral. I was a big Yankees fan, and Billy Martin was kind of like the punk rocker of baseball, come on. And I went there, and I was a professional corporate guy then, wearing a suit and everything. And I went in there and I actually brushed my shoulder against Richard Nixon. He was there. All these important people were there at St. Patrick's, a lot of celebrities, a lot of politicians, famous people. As I'm leaving St. Pat's, there was a couple of yuppies who were kind of frozen, looking to the side at some odd character. They're on the steps of the cathedral. This is Billy Martin's funeral. On the steps of the cathedral was David Peel. I mean, as he looked back then, hair looking like Charles Manson, you know. And he had a scroll, like a classic, like Greek or Roman scroll, which he He was opening up, and it was a handwritten epic poem that he had written as a eulogy for Billy Martin. And he was shouting out at the top of his lungs, Billy Martin, Billy Martin, the Yankees will never be the same without you, Billy Martin. And these disturbed young urban professionals were looking at him with disgust, and they were like, who the fuck is that? And I was like, what are you talking about? That's fucking David Peel. and David looked over, he said, you know me? I said, absolutely I know you. I got your albums. He made me prove it. I had to name them, name the albums, name the songs. We started talking, and we were talking baseball, and he suggested, he invited me to lunch. He said, let's have lunch. It's on me. He invites me to go to Mickey Mantle's restaurant, which doesn't exist anymore. We go up there.
Central Park South.
Yeah, that's right. We had lunch there. We were talking baseball, not rock and roll, a little rock and roll, a lot of baseball. And of course, typically, this is a day David meets me, typically, when it comes time to pay the bill, David suddenly realizes he just plumb forgot his wallet. Okay, anyhow, I gladly picked up the tab. And I know, Harold, I'm just going to finish this because it's a joke. I know. I gladly picked up the tab. We ended up deciding to just hang out for the day. I said, what do you want to do now? And he said, let's go tour Trump Tower. I was like, Trump Tower? He said, he was the guy that first brought me there. And I'm like, you want to go to Trump Tower? He goes, yeah, I know. He's a capitalist pig and all, but the architecture and the interior design is beautiful. It's really something to behold. So we went there, and there he is. Look at this 3-story waterfall inside. We hung out all day. I ended up picking up a dinner tab at a diner. Great time. But we spent about 12 hours together. And I could hardly understand what he was saying. I hadn't learned the David Peel machine gun language yet. And what struck me was 12 hours we spent together, talking, jamming. I pick up 2 meal tabs. 2 weeks later, I'm reading in the Village Voice that he's playing a gig, and I show up. I introduce myself. He has no idea who the hell I am. But to his credit, I made the point of making sure he would remember. And I used to see a lot of his shows back then. And he got to know me, and I was a guy that showed up at all of his shows. We became friends, often went to diners afterwards. But in the late 90s, I ended up moving back to New Hampshire with my first wife. And I was gone from this town, from this city, for 9 years. And I got divorced and I came back. I came back and tried to become an actor in middle age. But when I came back, I thought, surely everybody has forgotten about me. But I came back to the scene. David Peel actually remembered me, and at that point, you know, he actually asked me to be in his band, and so I've been in his band for the past 8 years. I'm not going to talk too long, but I miss him. I love him. I can't believe he's not here anymore. I guess other people need to talk, but God bless you, man.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, my name is Koshak.
What's your name?
Koshak. Koshak, yes.
Like Kojak.
Well, yes, like Koshak. And David was, he was more than just a friend for me, he was also a mentor. And I met him a long time ago in New York City. Central Park was the first place we met. Then I'd find him in those days he used to hang out in Washington Square Park. So I'd find him in Washington Square Park with his band of like merry pranksters, like weird people and stuff. And then in the 90s I moved back to New York City, and we met up again, and he was really into computers or something. I ended up helping him with his computers. For many years, and he was a big fan of Steve Jobs, and he was really into Steve Jobs and his life and like computers and this and that. So we used to talk about all those things. And I mean, a lot of people are wondering, like, you know, how David Peel could be like why he would like vote for a Republican. He was actually very radical. He wasn't really like, so for him, anything that was like really radical and against the system, like he thought that Hillary Clinton was really evil. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But he had this attitude about, but he really wanted to protest Trump. He didn't like Trump. I mean, he liked Trump like for a little bit. I mean, he admired the fact that he was a businessman. And that was another thing that he talked a lot about, was business. He had an interest in business, the music business, but more like independent music business, selling records, independent records and so forth, and how business worked. And he had a lot of interests that most people don't know about. He was interested in engineering, he was interested in physics. He could get into all kinds of like topics that most people wouldn't guess that he would be interested in. But I think that just to set the record straight, he was actually very radical, and he was very much into the protest movement. Whenever there was a protest movement, he wanted to get involved. He really wanted to get involved in the anti-Trump protests. As ironic as it seems, voting for Trump and then wanting to be involved in a big protest movement against Trump, that was his personality. That was how he was. So anyway, just wanted to let people know where he stood, and he'll always be remembered.
A quick point.
Yes.
David and I did Occupy Wall Street before most of you were born. There was an in the movie Lost Rockers, they found a video from an East German photographer of David and I at a protest, really early 60s on Wall Street. So it's everyone else's time now. We did it before you were born. So there. Okay, excuse me. It's time to testify. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.